Dalane, England. Liberty Moms are the original Secretaries of Defense. We are the real defenders of the home front. I am so happy to have you join us today. We have an amazing lineup. We are going to be discussing legislation that will be coming out not only in the state of Utah, but literally across the nation in 2024. So it's really important, regardless of what state you live in, that you pay attention, because if you're not in Utah, you will be confronting, or you'll want to be confronting, some of these bills. We're going to start with one of my heroes, someone that I just have so much respect for, Representative Phil Lyman. He was born, he's bold and he's a fearless leader. He was the San Juan County Commissioner. He led a peaceful, very peaceful protest against the federal government closure of our public roads. And maybe because of a million other things, he was voted Commissioner of the Year. And he has a master's degree in accounting. Is that right, Phil?
That's right.
I'm trying not to make too much stuff up. And he lives in Blanding, and he is not only an amazing legislator extraordinaire, he is also a gubernatorial candidate. So I just have to throw that in because it's really exciting to be able to have someone running for governor that we would want to vote for. So super awesome. So Phil, welcome. We're so glad that you could take time. I know you're super busy, and I would like you to tell us about this excellent bill that you have that is coming up. I don't know the real name of it. I call it the What is a Woman bill. But tell us about your bill.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the title is either. I think it's something about facilities, restroom facilities amendments, I think is what it's called. So,
got it.
Yeah, very simple bill. It says that boys can't use girls' restrooms or locker rooms. But I do that tongue in cheek because it gets complicated really quick, because you find out that you really do have to define the terms, starting with boy and man and girl and woman, and so it does that. And then the thing that I like about the bill, and I call these normative laws, when they just say, we're not criminalizing somebody, we're just saying, as a law, Utah will have on the books that boys have to use their own facilities and girls have to use their own facilities, and if they don't, this bill says that they could be trespassed. So it's not a a sex crime or a get on the sex offender registry for using the wrong restroom. It's just, if you're in the wrong place, you could be trespassed.
Yeah, it's a very simple bill, very clean. Of course, we want to be respectful of people who are suffering from a mental illness. They're suffering from gender identity, or just are into dressing up in opposite sex clothes. But I just think it is really important for our society and our community that we protect both boys and girls. We protect children, and we also protect women. And of course, we want to protect men as well. Maybe I'm wrong. I think men maybe need a little less protection than women do in this arena, because women are real vulnerable when they go into the ladies' room. We're very vulnerable. We want our privacy, and we don't want men in the ladies' room.
Yeah, and to me, and I brought this up when I was talking to the Eagle Forum, it's not about the bathroom, it's about the cause, and it's about our culture and our gender and what's being attacked. And like you, I've got sensitivity to people who, are dealing with whatever it is, and there may be people who don't feel comfortable going into the bathroom of their birth gender, which is why it's important, like at a school, that they have access to maybe the staff bathroom or something that's a little bit more private. But the responsibility should lie with them and the girls who are in the girls' bathroom, because they're girls, should be able to feel like they can go in there without having to give up their rights and their freedom and their security and safety. So.
Exactly. As a country, our Constitution protects the individual rights of each individual. So we want to be protective of those individuals who are cross-dressers or who are think that they're the opposite sex and they really are. We want to be sensitive to their rights. They have rights, but never at the expense of everyone else's rights. That doesn't mean that everyone else must surrender their rights on behalf of a few others' rights. So, and you really gave a great example of a great way to solve this issue is, and we're seeing this happen across the nation, is where bathroom stalls are individualized. They're not male or female, they're more individual. It's a great resolution to this because then you have autonomy of your very own space.
Yeah, I would say bathrooms themselves, not just the stall, but to
Yes.
have unisex bathrooms that you can go in, lock the door behind you, and
Mhm.
feel like you've got the private space. And a lot of bathrooms are like that now
Yes.
in the public. And maybe when schools are built, they'll do more of that. We're not talking about. I wouldn't really call it unisex, like whoever wants to use it. It's more like just a private
Private,
bathroom.
private
So I guess maybe,
individual.
yeah. So go in, lock the door behind you, and but when it's common spaces, you're exactly right. The people that are there should not feel like they have to be on guard.
Okay, so what do you see as the biggest pushback? What's going to be your biggest hurdle to get this bill passed?
Well, um, I believe that it's a concept whose time is ripened, and it's like I think people are done with the woke ideology, and what's been happening up until now. Um, I mean, I don't want to make blanket generalizations, but if we take the Riley Gaines situation with Leah Thomas in the bathroom, it wasn't a person who had gender dysphoria. It was a person who had an agenda and wanted to prove a point that they could go into those spaces and you can't do anything about it. And it was very cultural, and it was a real challenge to society. Um, and I'm hoping that, like I say, has kind of ripened, and people are like, you know what, we're just not going to do that anymore. So I don't see a lot of pushback coming. I guess I'll put it that way. If there is
Fantastic.
pushback, it would probably be from the transgender side of things. I got a call from someone and said that the transgender, and I haven't reached out to Equality Utah, mainly because they know what legislation is out there, and I'm sure we'll have these debates. But the question was, you're trying to erase. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. You're trying to erase the transgender community, and I said that's not at all the case. Transgender community is trying to erase gender in general, and
Yeah.
this is standing up for people who were born, who have a gender, and should be free to live in a space, in society that respects that.
Well, I just think it's important, Phil, that we recognize there is such a thing as truth. And the thing that I find the most sad about those who are transgender, and if somebody wants to, I just believe in freedom. So for adults, you can do things that you want to do that are not the societal norm. But I do think it's important for us as a society and especially as lawmakers is to address and as citizens that there is no such thing as changing your sex. No matter how many hormones or how many sex transitioning pills you take or whatever drugs you take, no matter how much surgery you have, you can't actually change your sex. Your chromosomes will never change. Your DNA is your DNA. You can't change that. It is God defined, it is God designed, and there isn't anything we as man can do to change that. And so I respect people's absolute right to decide how they want to perceive their own lives and lead them. Um, but I just think it's important that we identify and admit and state there is something called truth. And no matter what you do, you will not change your sex. You can change your appearance. You can't change your sex. You will still be a man if you're born a man. You will still be a woman if you're born a woman. And I just think it's the emperor's new clothes. It didn't help the emperor for people to validate something that wasn't true. I just believe that we should be in search of truth and then we should speak the truth.
It's really interesting, and I'm in Washington D.C. now. I came back with a group of people, and we're talking to the weaponization committee that's being formed through the judiciary, and what you find is that there really are kind of two mindsets of people, and most that I associate with think like you and I, that the parents are responsible for their children, and that children are, a blessing. And there is another group that believes that children are basically um, calves, offspring, and parents don't have any more right to them than the government does, and the government should be able to tell them. And so we get into personhood, parenthood, statehood, and you find there are parallel universes here, and one of them does not view children as any more important than dogs or rivers or streams, and they really, and then they go to work to kind of push that agenda through, and part of that is degenderizing a society, and we saw it happen with Mao. Mao, made all the young people shave their heads, and then there are no boys, there are no girls, there's only Mao.
Right. There's no families. He is the God.
Right.
He is God. He is in charge.
And
all your blessings, all your rights come from him.
Exactly. So most of the people that you and I that are hearing us right now are thinking that's outlandish that someone would do that. But we have to recognize that in reality, there are people who feel that way. And then it turns into an all out deliberate assault on the family, on the individual, on children, on gender. And if we put our heads in the sand as to what's driving this, then we're not going to be able to fight the problem. So there are people who are gender confused, but that is not an accident either. And the social media and the school curriculum and they're being groomed, I guess, to put away religion and gender and family. And if we don't push back, history will look back and say, why not? Why did you not stand up for us when we still had a fighting chance?
Well, Phil, when we look at so many histories of so many other countries when such similar things happened, where they did try to disconnect the young generation from their ancestors or from not just their parents, but their grandparents. And they did. Chairman Mao destroyed anything that was an antique or that was historical. It's like, get rid of that. We have seen that begin to happen in the United States. And it's interesting. I think the biggest problem, of course, I'm a history teacher, so of course I'm sensitive to this, but it's like people don't know their history. They don't know what Hitler did. It's like, how do you kill 6 million Jews and 11 million people? How does that happen? And we just can see a pattern repeating itself here, but we have it so good, and we haven't really had to pay the price for our freedom here, and we do not understand how fragile it is and how it can be. We can give it up of our own free will and choice. It doesn't have to be taken. We're literally giving it away. And I personally think that this entire movement is not just about dismantling families, but it is to displace and replace and diminish God, the creator. I think that's what it really comes down to. The transgender movement, and I'm not talking about the people who are in this, I'm talking about the movement, those who are in control of it. That is a design to eliminate or erase God, the creation.
Right.
So
it's a full attack. They know what they're doing, and it's like challenging. They're really challenging the states.
Yes.
You cannot do anything about this. We're going to do this, and you can't change it. And the states have to stand up and say, well, actually, we can pass laws, and we're going to pass laws, despite all the name calling that's going to happen to those legislators that vote for it. And again, I do think that the climate has changed a little bit from where it may have been, 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
And I totally agree with you. And I just want to say, I'm not talking about the people that are struggling with their sexual identity. I am not talking about those people, because they're some really great people, and they're really in a lot of pain, and they're struggling, and they're searching for answers. And, how do we find answers if we don't search? But I think it's important to note the behind it, who's behind it, and what the money and the power that is coming from the drive behind it.
So some of our greatest support on this bill and bills like it are the LGBT community.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because they're not pushing for the kind of stuff that the far left is pushing.
Absolutely. And look at how many people have detransitioned who said, like, this is not an answer. This causes many more problems. And then I mean, you and I both have a lot of the same friends that identify as gay, and they are amazing because they just are very powerful to come out. They have a great voice. And they're absolutely 100% want to protect children and from this. So thank you. Thank you so much for running this bell. Okay, I do want to just really quickly, let's be sure and mention you have an event coming up in Utah, in Salt Lake City at the U of U, Thursday, January 18th. And tell us who it is.
Riley Gaines is coming out, and I'm really excited. Those who don't know Riley Gaines, she's the swimmer that kind of stood up on this issue. I always say Riley is the truth against which the lies collided, and because she stood up at the time. So she's going to be here Thursday and Friday in St. George, Thursday at University of Utah.
Oh, right. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Friday
I'm not going Friday, so.
I'll say Friday at Dixie State, Utah Tech, the university down there. So, and we're really excited. And what I wanted Riley to be able to come out and thank the legislators for, doing the override of Governor Cox's veto a couple of years ago, and give her a chance just to say hi to a few of those legislators because they stuck their neck out on this issue, and I think she'll appreciate it.
She is truly a rock star. She is young. She had an entire career ahead of her. She's worked hard really since she was a little kid, swimming and really excelling. And I am so proud of her and so impressed. So it's a great opportunity. So tell us how we get tickets to the Riley Gaines event, either at the U of U or in St. George.
So on my website, the Lyman for Utah, that's Lyman, FOR, Utah.com. You can follow the link there. You can get tickets. I think they're moving fast. We don't have a huge venue in Salt Lake. The St. George one's a pretty good sized venue, and hopefully we'll get lots of college students, lots of high school students. That's where you go.
That's awesome. LymanForUtah.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to say real quick, if you got a sec, Dalane, on the bill, I was really concerned up front. I said I do not want this to turn into a profiling bill or a witch hunt type bill where people are going after, and that's why it's like the minimum violation there is. If a person is in distress and runs into the wrong bathroom, they're not going to be trespassed or criminalized for it. And I don't want people thinking that it's going to turn into watchdogging and going after people and saying, aha, I caught you using the wrong bathroom. I don't think some people want a stronger language. I think the language again is just right to send the right message. It's kind of like we don't drive on the left side of the road. It's not personal. We just don't drive on the left side of the road. We don't use different bathrooms. So.
Right. And I think you're very wise. I really appreciate that it's a trespassing. Nobody's going to be thrown in jail. But there must be some line, and must be consequences. If you have a law without a consequence, you don't have a law at all. So has to be some consequence tied to it. So, okay, Phil, so tell us why you decided to run for governor. I think it's somewhat self-evident, but hey, tell us your reason why you decided to run for governor of the state of Utah.
It really comes down to watching the agencies in my hometown down in southern Utah be infiltrated by environmentalist groups and special interest groups, and then start affecting the way they do their job, and then start hurting people, start shutting down industries and closing roads and things like that. And that led me to the state legislature, where I thought maybe I could fight there, and which has led me to the governor's office, because I see the same thing happening there. I see these policies coming basically from the United Nations, from the World Economic Forum, coming down through the National Governors Association, or whatever avenue that the Carnegie Institute wants to run their agenda through, and it ends up in our legislation and passed through our bills. And I think that states need to be very aware of it and fight against it. And so far, Utah has been not just have they not been fighting against it, they've been leading the charge on a lot of it, and it's very, very troubling to me.
Yes, it is. We think that we're a red state, but we're doing a lot of things that are not at all red. We're doing a
Right.
lot of things that are ushering in the the ties and connections of the United Nations, and really to give up our freedoms and our autonomy as a state.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, it's serious stuff, and I don't take it lightly. And I don't want to be the governor. I just want a governor that will govern Utah to protect the rights of the people. And from that standpoint, I'm really excited about the race, and we've got a lot of traction. And I appreciate support from people like you and your listeners.
Dalane, I have your other two guests. If you'd like me to let them into our stream.
yes, that'd be great. Phil, thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your excellent legislation throughout the years that you've been in the legislature, and really appreciate your hard work, and hope everything goes well. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a great day. Thank you.
See you.
Thanks. Okay, we are going to shift gears here. We're really, really pleased to have two Liberty Moms with us. We are going to introduce Chris Kimball, who is one of my very best friends in the world. She's a Liberty Mom, and she is the former Davis County chair, and she is also a presidential elector. And I think that's pretty fun. And I could go on, but we want to really hear from her. And she also brings with her another friend, Tracy Halverson, who is an attorney, and she's also been kind of one of the leaders in the initiative for the flag. So we're going to be shifting gears and talking about how in this 2023, this last year, our legislature passed a bill to replace the Utah state flag with that is loaded with tons of heritage and culture and symbolism, and to replace it with a new woke flag that is kind of like something that would be easy. They say the reason is to make it easier to brand Utah. Now, we know we did invite them to use that as a logo rather than to change our flag, but that was denied. And so we're going to talk about why they changed our flag, what the ramifications of that are. And we also want to talk about what is happening right now in order to put this vote that was made by our legislature, put it on the ballot so the people can vote and decide if they want to replace our flag or not. So welcome, Chris and Tracy.
Well, thanks, Dalane, for letting us come on your show. We're excited to be here today. And I think after hearing a little bit of your conversation that you had with Phil Lyman, I would like to just share with you a quote, because it really tells the story of the flag and what's behind it and why we need to stop it. But
Fantastic.
There was a quote by, I'm not going to tell you the individual till I tell you the quote, but if you can cut the people off from their history, then they can be easily persuaded. And you probably know.
It doesn't matter who said it. It's still true. Yes.
Exactly. And that was Karl Marx.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely knew how important it was to erase history, to change the history and heritage of a people in order to manipulate them to move forward into a new direction. Okay. And so that's what we have here with the flag. And fortunately for Utah, we have a warrior, Tracy Halverson. Thank you, Tracy. Oh my goodness. She has put in so much effort into saving this flag with the first referendum and then filing for this initiative. And Tracy, I'm just totally grateful for all the work that you've done to help us save our heritage and not take us down this path of communism that James Lindsay identified on Saturday. It's outright communism when you go in and change a historical culture of a people.
Well, and thank you, Dalane, for having us on, and Chris for inviting me. Just to correct, I'm not an attorney. I'm a paralegal by trade.
So. Thank you very much for correcting me. Apologize.
Yeah. No, that's okay. But Chris is exactly right. It's when you simplify it, there is nothing meaningful in that flag, and so it is easily to subvert those values. And that's what James Lindsay has also echoed and said, this is going down the wrong path. And a lot of people say, what's wrong with this flag? I wouldn't fight for the new flag. There's nothing in there that means anything, but the history of ours, the symbols, if you study it, the arrows mean, that we will stand up for our freedoms and will stand against tyranny. And that stuff in those symbols, in that, there's rich history, and we cannot lose that. We've got to remind us that we are United States. We're one nation under God. And that's why I've taken on this. People think it's just a flag, but flags mean something. People die over flags. So it is a very important symbol in our state that we need to protect. So that's kind of why I haven't let go of it.
Yeah, it is really important. And a lot of people go, oh, it's just the flag. It's not that big of a deal. Why are you making it such a big deal? And if you think it's a small thing, I mean, we all know that it's all the big things start with the small things. And it might just be just the flag to you, but the reality is it is a symbol of our culture, our heritage, and our ancestors and the sacrifices that were made.
And another argument, they say, well, they let you have your historic flag. But
Yes.
even in the bill, there's language in there that says that the lieutenant governor can tell you when and where to fly that flag. And China has two flags. You should not have two flags. It's divisive. And you divide a nation, you'll conquer it.
Absolutely. It is in my opinion, I just feel like it was absolutely by design that we have two flags. Like, oh, you don't like this new flag? Okay, we can have two flags. And has it not done an excellent job dividing us?
Mm-hmm.
It has divided us.
Well,
and it's been sad to see people pit against each other.
It's true. And Tracy, myself, there's tons of volunteers throughout the state. We are toe to toe talking to constituents throughout Utah. And I'm not saying it's a 50-50. It is a 85-15. I mean, we have so many more people that are upset about this flag change than we do and I'm saying this because we're out gathering signatures, and we know the volume of people that we're talking to, and the distaste that people have for our state legislature, for the governor, because they even did this, and those that recognize the process. And originally, the people were told that they would have the final say in the flag. And then they pass SB 31 and just ignore the people in that process. They just pass it out.
I think they knew that it wouldn't pass. I think they had the surveys and they knew it wouldn't pass. So that's why they were not going to let us have a say in it.
It was interesting how much pressure legislators were under to pass the bill to change our flag. Okay, so this is really important in my opinion. I think this is really important because a lot of legislators said, and including the representative who the first time sponsored it, and he said, well, it was brought to me by a third grade class, and they came to me and said, hey, we want to get involved in the process, and so we think it would be fun to change the flag. He said, I didn't think that it would ever happen. I didn't think anyone would vote for it. And so people say, legislators go, this is not a United Nations. This is not a national movement. This is just a little third grade class. They had this idea. Okay, if that is the case, let me just ask you, where did these third graders get the idea from? The teachers in the classroom, I'm a teacher, but I do teach in private school. I do have a lot of public school students come into my classroom. And so I'm aware of I have 6 kids. I'm aware of what's going on in public schools. I think most people are at this point. Where did the kids get the idea? From their teacher. Where did the teacher get this idea? Who is more connected to these movements, these DEI, woke, critical race theory, social emotional learning? Who's more connected to all of this movement than the teachers in the classroom? And what a smart, savvy, sneaky way to get into the legislature instead of having some business do it is to have little children, to use our little children to make them think. I mean, again, we go back to what you're saying about Chairman Mao Zedong, and about Hitler and Stalin and Karl Marx. Go to the classroom, go to the children. If you have control over the classes and you have control of the children, you can change an entire nation in 12 years.
Dalane, and I would say even if we were to give them the benefit of the doubt and the children, let's just say even the children came up with that idea.
Let's do.
Somebody needs to be a grown-up.
Yes.
Somebody needs to actually say, gosh, you know what? That actually, it's a great suggestion, but you know what? That wouldn't be a good thing for us to do because, and educate them why. Because this is what the flag represents. It's actually part of our heritage. And so we don't want to change it on the whim. It could have been an educational time to teach those children. There are some things you don't change just because you feel like you want to, right?
You might
What
not
if they-
think it's that attractive,
Yeah,
but it's
so
not
you need
something
to-
you want to change.
Not everything can or should be changed. Okay. And so it's a teaching process. So even if it did start in that classroom, even our representative should have probably said, you know what, let's take that back to your classroom and come up with something different. How about a logo for our state?
Right.
That's not changing anything, and it's giving you something to create.
Absolutely.
That's what I think our representative should have done instead of saying, yeah, we'll run this bill. I mean, bills cost, there's money involved in that process.
Time.
And so, exactly. And so it's like, that's not quite the direction we want to go. Let's have you find something else to create. You know, they created a dinosaur. We have a state dinosaur. They create state things all the time. Create a state logo for us. That's what you should create. That's what I think our legislator should have done, is understanding that it's not a good idea to change our history. And that's what happens when you change our flag.
Absolutely. Tracy, tell us, where can we go if we haven't signed the initiative yet, or if you want to get a packet, because tell us how long we have and where we can go to sign or get a packet.
So we have currently until February 15th to get an additional 40,000 signatures. In the referendum, we got over 55,000 signatures. But you can go to restoreutahsflag.com. There's a number there that you can call me directly, or you can find where to sign in permanent. We do have some permanent locations that have packets that you can stop by and sign. Part of the trial that we get pushed back on is we have to turn, once you start a packet, you have to turn it in within 30 days. And if you don't, then those signatures do not count. And it's really, I can understand trying not to get to get 140,000 signatures and having the clerk process them. I understand the reason, but to disenfranchise so many signatures is just, like, it's mind-boggling that we do that.
And I could even see saying all the signatures that are within 30 days would count and the signatures over 30 days will not. But why would all those signatures that were just in the last 2 weeks or 1 week, why would they be disqualified?
Well, and to top it off, in the regulation, it says if you sign again, you could face a Class A misdemeanor.
Really? I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it's the regulation is truly to stop grassroots. And initiatives, you can abuse initiatives and referendums. People can abuse them. You don't want them so easily but you don't want to take it away, the right to put a check on your government when they're not listening to you and they're just listening to special interest groups. They're tools in our Constitution, in our Utah State Constitution, use and to do a check on our government. And they did not listen on this, and they know they didn't. And that's why they want to make it as hard as possible to get it to the ballot.
Yeah, and we've been here before, and so we're really hoping that because it's an election year, our legislators are going to start listening to us. And I'm not, and I say that as a blanket because some of them are listening, but we need more of them to listen. So yeah, we really appreciate all the work that you've done. I know Chris has worked really hard on it too. I don't know how many packets. I did one packet and a few signatures. And I know some people have just really been out there every single second working really hard on it.
You're talking about Tracy on that, because she she's out there all the time and organizing and encouraging and really getting, I mean, because this is a huge effort. It's all across the state. It's not the candidates that are filing to just get ballot access. They can get their signatures anywhere. And there's a specific formula that is in law, in code, and it makes it very, very challenging. And we've got a lot of support, but we need more. We need more help. Many hands make light work, and so we need the volunteers to go out and help us in these last few weeks to push us across the finish line.
We've got over a month, so really anyone could get a packet in the next couple of days, and they would have almost to the end, so they'd have almost a month to get those signatures, and each packet has 50 signatures.
50, yes.
Yeah. So I want to repeat, Tracy, restore Utah's flag.com.
Yeah.
Restores Utah, and that's with an S.
Restore is not without is not. It's just
right. Restore and then Utah's flag.com.
Yep.
Okay, so I would invite everyone that could possibly, and you don't have to fill the entire packet. If you only get 25 signatures, get them. Every 25 helps. So, but if you go out and just get the signatures of your family and friends and people that you see, and like I would just carry it with me everywhere. I know Chris, everywhere she goes, and I know Tracy, everywhere they go, they've got it in hand, and they're just stop and talk to people and just ask them. And the key is to get the people that you know, and then go to places where people are and just ask them. And it's pretty easy. I just found very few people did not want to sign, which I told them is fine if they don't want to. There's no pressure. You just offer it to them and say, do you want to put this on the ballot? Do you want to be able to vote? And I would have to say, well, like Chris said, easily 85% of the people that I talk to want our real flag. They want our real flag back.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's interesting is I know Tracy has had this as well, is we'll come across people who do like the new flag, but once they understand the process and how the vote was taken away from the people to make the final decision, they sign the packet. They realize that it's more important, the principle of keeping our government in check and making sure that they follow through with what they say that they're going to do. They sign the packet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, well, do you have anything else you'd like to add, Tracy?
No, I just want to thank all our volunteers and everybody that's been working to get this. And even you can do some donations that helps with our campaign and any other fees that we need and our printing, because it's all grassroots. So you can also donate on there at restoreutahsflag.com. And again, I just appreciate everybody, and I've met amazing people through this whole process, and Utah is made up with amazing people.
Yeah, I would echo what Tracy just said, because I have been so impressed with the hard work that so many across the state, from Tremont, Box Elder County, all the way down to Washington County and on the east, and people are so dedicated to this this mission, and it's been so fun to lock arms with them. And so there's different ways to help. Either you're gathering the signatures or donating. That's important because packets have to be printed, making this initiative public, more public awareness. But it's definitely been an eye-opener to hear how many people are disappointed in our legislature and governor for doing this.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can make it right. They have, there's time, but we're finishing our finish line. But we'll see what happens with this session.
And also want to thank you, Dalane, and KMMU live stream for having us on here and helping us spread our word. And we appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you. I mean, we're all on the same team here, so that's no problem, because it's really important to bring back our culture, to preserve it. It's just so important. And I think we're really blessed to live in a state where people care so many people are willing to jump in and get on board. It's been really amazing to see how many people have gotten involved and invested in it. And it's been a heavy lift. It's a huge deal. It is not easy. And I agree with you, Tracy. We don't want it to be easy. We don't want it to be impossible, but we don't want it to be easy. So,
and I do want to point out the language that has been created, that Tracy and others that crafted this initiative, is that going forward, if there's any other individual or group that decides Utah needs a new flag for whatever reason, it's always going to be taken back to the voice of the people to make that final vote on any other change that would happen to our flag.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And what we're really showing is it can happen, and we can make it happen, and it can be done, which is really, really important. So, okay, well, we really appreciate you. It's been fantastic having you on. We really appreciate you. And I really want you to know how much we appreciate you. We're going to be discussing some of the bills that are going to be up in this session 2024. So you're welcome to drop off if you need to. If you want to stay, you are very welcome to stay with us. So I know that you're quite versed and know a lot of the bills. So I will just leave that up to you. We are going to start, and I just thank you so much. We're going to start with one of my favorite bills of the session, or I think it's a really important bill. It's not really the kind of thing that I have in the past been like all over, gotten super excited about. And it is the food bill, the food preservation bill. And this is such an important bill. And I do not think that 90% of people in Utah have any idea how important this bill is and how at risk our food supply in the state of Utah is. I just don't think we have any idea. Honestly, I wouldn't know, except that I have become friends with a lot of farmers and ranchers because of their concern for this. And it is, I don't think most of us realize what has been happening, in that there have been a lot of federal laws and federal regulations regarding farmers and ranchers. And they've done a lot of things to make it difficult for farmers and ranchers to produce. And then we look at other countries. We look at Ireland and we look at Sri Lanka and how they have not been allowed to use fertilizer. They're saying, oh, it's toxic, it's not green, it's bad for the environment. And it has completely devastated and decimated their supply. People are starving. It has been really, really difficult. And so that I think is, something we can look and see, this is really important. We do not want to be in this situation in Utah. So what this bill does is it simply says if we grow it in Utah, we package it or manufacture it and get it ready for consumption, and then we sell it in the state of Utah, then constitutionally it is not subject to the Commerce Clause. And that way the federal government can't touch it, hands off. And that way we can produce what we want. We have power over our food supply if we grow it and package it and sell it in the state of Utah. So that is really important. And then what it also says is that the only body that can have any control over our food supply is the legislative elected accountable body. So it literally removes the rule makers from being able to have power and control over our food supply. It removes the ability to have a emergency powers declaration that would take it over, or to have our health department come in and say, you can't use this water because it's a pollutant to water crops. You can't use this fertilizer. So it takes the power away from the health department, emergency powers, and rulemaking authorities over our food production and our food process if we grow it and manufacture it and package it and sell it in the state of Utah. So I think it's a super exciting bill. It is being sponsored by Senator Ron Winterton, who is the senator. Ooh, sorry about that. He's a senator he lives in Roosevelt. He's over Daggett, Duchesne, Summit, Uinta, and Wasatch counties. So think of the geographical area that he has. It's huge. And a huge percentage, I don't know the percentage, but a great percentage of his constituency they're all in rural. And so a lot of them are farmers and ranchers. So they really care about this and they get how important it is. But it's a really, really important to help this bill get through, to support this bill, and to get aware of it. We're going to need a lot of help. And you think, why would we need a lot of help? This seems like a pretty obvious, pretty easy, self-evident bill. But when you think about the rulemaking authority agencies in the state of Utah, do they want to be cut out? No, they don't. They want to have power over our food supply. They think that they are wise. They think that they should have power and control. They feel very powerful, and they are, and they cannot imagine that they shouldn't have first dibs on the control. So they are definitely going to be pushing back on this bill because they do want to not lose their power. Of course, do you think that those who have the power, like the executive branch, the governor, would want to remove his power to not be able to declare an emergency over our food? So that is really important. We're going to get pushback there, I'm sure. And then when you have these, the health department, we know what the health department is capable of doing. We know that they feel very powerful. They like usurping their power. I cannot see the health department rolling over and say, yeah, we're just fine with this. I think the health department is going to feel like this is very important for them to stay on top of it. What I think is also really important is to note that this bill does not prevent any of these agencies from performing their legally authorized limited role over our food. So it doesn't usurp any of their real authority. It just stops them from overreaching and anything that is not within their legally responsible role. Chris, do you have anything you want to say? I don't want to monopolize.
Well, no, you did a great job explaining that, but it is what I love about this bill is it's preemptive, and
yes.
I think he's had people thinking this isn't necessary. Why are you doing it? But believe me, we learned during COVID that a lot of the problems we saw during COVID was because of language that had been placed in our code 20 years prior. And once that emergency was released, then that language became effective. And we realized that there was some problems in our code we didn't realize before. And
we never used it, so we didn't even realize it was there. Right. We hadn't really even seen it.
Yeah, it got passed 20 years ago and slipped in some bill. And so, but on the flip side, we can be just as proactive because that side was totally proactive.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we need to be proactive as well. And, there's nothing wrong with covering all your bases. These are common sense rules and wisdom that people grew up with. Don't put your eggs all in one basket, but you're protecting what's the worst thing that could happen? I've protected myself against it. And that is wise wisdom to live by. And so I love the fact that he is wanting to be preemptive and make sure that our food supply is protected, because it's very hard. The legislative body is like a huge ocean cruise ship. And to get it to turn or change, you've got to call a special session. It takes time. And so you can't act on a dime when the emergency or the bad situation has happened. And so I think being preemptive is just smart, and anyone that would disagree with that is illogical or not somebody that you want to have for your rainy day, because you've got to be prepared. They obviously weren't a Boy Scout, because that's what you were taught as Boy Scouts. Be prepared. Okay. And we're looking forward now and seeing that there could be a problem with our food supply because of the regulations that are in our political system.
Yes. Absolutely. So, yeah, so I'd like to see everyone, really be aware of this bill, be on top of it. I don't know for sure which committee it's going to go into, but probably natural resources would be the natural one, but you never really know. And so, please stay engaged and stay on top of this, because we will need the citizens to stand up and be active and show we care about this. And what's really exciting is we have a lot of legislators who want to be co-sponsors of this bill. So that we find very, very exciting, is that that really helps a bill too. And really what this bill does is it puts the power of our food to regulate and be an oversight over our food into the hands that it should be in, and that is the elected, accountable legislature. Not one person, not one small group of people, but the entire body of the legislature, the House and the Senate. And so they should be anxious to retain the power that they not only have, they were elected to do, but also that they took a sacred oath to uphold. So basically, by voting for this bill, they are literally upholding their constitutional duty and the oath that they took to do that. So another thing, now I know this isn't a Utah thing, but I think it definitely affects Utah ever so much. And that is, I just wanted to talk real briefly about our Senator Mike Lee, Senator Extraordinaire. He has a bill that he is doing to get the United States, not just the state of Utah, get the United States out of the United Nations. And I'm so excited about this bill. And he gets it. We all know it's a huge, heavy lift. It isn't exactly like he's just going to zip in there and pass this bill. But it does tell us as a state that we need to not allow the United Nations to come into our state and regulate our state. And if you think that is not happening, I am here to tell you, I can prove that it is. We have so much legislation that comes to our state is literally implementing the United Nations mission. And you might think, what's wrong with the United Nations? It sounds lovely. Doesn't it sound lovely? It sounds nice. We all want to come together, sing kumbaya, we all get along with other nations, stop wars. It sounds really lovely. But Chris and I have been to the United Nations. We understand who they are, what they are. We know their mission. They've made it very clear. They're not in the closet about it. They are an anti-God, anti-family, absolutely anti-freedom organization. And the bills that they don't necessarily sponsor a bill, but they sponsor a philosophy or an idea, and then the legislature sponsors it. And everything that comes through is literally taking our freedom away, centralizing power, and is really not in our best interest at all as citizens or as a state.
Yeah, I agree. We've actually had the opportunity to attend 2 different UN conferences, one in New York, right in the belly of the beast, and the other one here in Utah. And it's a very interesting, first of all, the public you can't just walk in as a public citizen. You have to you have to gain access, usually through a NGO or an education. Yeah, you have to credential through another organization. So
yes.
It's not really open to the general population.
Not at all.
The UN, basically, from what I have been able to see, is they have an understanding that most like-minded people attend the UN.
Yes.
And so I think they were really surprised at the pushback that they got in Salt Lake, because so many, even there was a woman from California that had flown in to Salt Lake who was very conservative-minded, like-minded, wanted to, keep our individual liberties, and they weren't really prepared for that. So I know we put a snag in some of their operations, but the UN, when they do these conferences, they'll come out and they'll produce a document, and from that document, like, the 2030, that's where they have their agenda of what they want. And so they'll produce a document in this particular area, whether it's safe communities or women's, dealing with women's issues or whatever. And then that's kind of like code for the rest of the world. Go ahead, implement this. This is what we've created. Go ahead and put it in place, right?
Right.
And I have to echo, I sat in a meeting in Salt Lake. So this is right in Salt Lake, which now, once you enter the UN, you've left Salt Lake City. You've left the United States of America. When they come in, they actually cede over the land to the UN.
And when we went in Salt Lake, they made it very clear, you are no longer in Salt Lake. You are in UN territory. They made that very clear when we entered.
The local law enforcement is not allowed in the boundary. They have their own UN law enforcement. So that comes in. And I remember sitting in one of the afternoon meetings, and they talked about how we need to get rid of elections, and that elections just really cause a snag in their plans, because if the people, vote for the wrong candidate, it can really slow down their plans. And we know that was a reference to our former president, but they openly talked about it. And I thought, wow, there's nothing covert at all. They are totally open in what they want. And, we saw that in New York, where
did see that in New York very much,
where they totally are. They attack the free market system that we have in this country and demonize it. It's bad.
They hate America. I mean, they demonized everything about America. They hate freedom, and they do not like the free market. And they made it very clear. There they are in New York, being sponsored and funded by America and American taxpayers, and they just could not trash America enough.
Right. Yeah. So unfortunately, some of their, I think their partnerships have confused people into thinking that they are doing really good work, but there's been plenty of exposure with even UNICEF and UNESCO, where they send in these UN individuals who are supposed to stop human trafficking, and they are perpetrators of human trafficking. Okay, that has been exposed. And so it's been, plus the vaccination program, India finally kicked them out because they realized they were vaccinating and sterilizing their young women.
Yes.
And so it's horrible, some of the things that they have perpetrated across the globe under the guise of humanity.
Yes.
Under humanitarian, humanitarian, efforts, right?
They make it look so good, and it's always under the guise of humanitarianism. And yet, what are the results? We need to be looking at not the talking points, but what are the results?
Right. And we need to really take to heart that wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yes. Yeah.
They're in scripture. We need to just always be on guard. Yes,
we have been warned and warned that we must beware of the wolves that wear the sheep's clothing. And that is how so much of this is perpetrated by people who appear so good. Yeah, and I think that a high percentage, I don't know the percentage, but I know a lot of the bills that we deal with are really, they have really sweet language, but they're really what you call a Trojan horse, or they're traps, where they look really nice. If you just read it and don't understand the double language, you can think that you can be fooled. You can think that it's a good bill, which happens to our legislators all the time. And we have to go on, what do you think is really going to happen here? Like, you just gave power to an unelected, unaccountable entity. You don't even know who they are. You've just given them power over so many parts of our state. And so, we just have to shine light on the United Nations. And I am just so thrilled with Senator Lee for sponsoring this bill. And I just think that we need to just make sure that people across this nation know and try to get their senators to vote for it. And the more we talk about it, the more we educate. The key to getting that through is really education, helping people understand.
The fact that he just even sponsors the bill and gets it out there starts the conversation about what is wrong with the UN. Now, decades ago, we used to hear about it within our church construct. Okay, we were warned about it with J. Reuben Clark and David O. McKay. These individuals were warning us, and President Benson. But we've kind of lost that insight. And so people have gotten very laxed into thinking, oh, there's something, you can trust them. They're an agency you can trust. And I love the fact that he filed the bill just to bring it to people's attention that we need to look closer at what they are doing.
Yes, we do.
And how they are harming us. And we should not be funding any part of their agenda.
We should not be funding it, not one dime. No.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be partnering with an anti-family, anti-God, anti-freedom organization. We should not be partnering with them, in my opinion, which isn't that humble, but that's what I think.
Right.
And I do appreciate, sometimes you partner with people or organizations that you don't agree with on everything, but you agree with them on an issue. I totally get that. We do that. We're like, you know what? We don't agree with them on anything, but they get privacy rights. They get it. So we'll go in and partner with them on that issue and on that bill because we both agree. And it's great to have those relationships. And it's great to have, this side and this side, we're all coming together. It's very effective. But we do need to be very careful of who we align ourselves with. And we also want to make sure when we're donating money, where that money is going. That isn't going to their pockets, and it's not going to fund something we don't agree with.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. No, I was really, if I could do a cartwheel, I would have done it when I saw that bill coming out.
I'm going to have to try that and see if I can.
And honestly, it's hard for people to believe that they can be that overt until, I really wouldn't have thought that they could just be saying things like they do, just openly, until I went there for myself. And, I thank the Lord that he's blessed me to put me into these situations where I've been exposed. I've seen them in action and seen their ideology is not in tune with Jesus Christ, for example, and what he would want. And so,
or even a moral base or anything positive would.
Right.
And you can't unexperience it. That's the thing is we have seen and we have experienced things there that I would never experience anywhere else, and that I can't undo it. I can't take it back. I can't pretend like I don't know.
Well, and what was really interesting when they came to Salt Lake in 2019, somehow, I don't know how this happened, but by the grace of God, the pro-life organization was accepted to be at the UN. Okay. And somehow that slipped under their radar. And so they were getting ready to do a training on the pro-life issue attached to, of course, fighting abortion. And wow, once they found out that they were pro-life, they were nixed so fast, like, nope, you're out of here. And we're going, oh, what about everybody? What about this inclusive language that you keep throwing out, that we all need to be tolerant of each other? And right there, right on a dime, the people that were promoting life and honoring and respecting God's creation were cast out, so to speak, of the UN, because it's not their wheelhouse to have God's gift to the world, which is humanity, life. That's the antithesis of what they want, right? And so it was really interesting to see that tolerance and that diversity and all of those buzzwords that they like to use were just totally thrown away because they didn't want anything pro-life at their conference.
And, speaking of that, I just want to throw this out. Abortion was the leading cause of death worldwide in 2023. The leading cause of death in our world was abortion, is intentionally taking the life of the unborn. 73 million people lives.
So heartbreaking.
It is just unconscionable.
Yeah, so heartbreaking. And Dalane, I hope you don't mind, but I would love to throw out a plug to my friend Amberly Peterson.
Oh, let's do.
She has written a book. It's called Ripened, RIPENED, Ripened. Think about the apple getting too ripe. And it totally goes in and for those of you that are part of the LDS culture, and even if you're not, it totally goes in and shows how abortion led to the destruction of an ancient culture that lived here in the Americas back in, 2,000 years ago. And so she's been able to put this argument together, that is what led to their extinction versus the Lamanites who didn't participate in the secret murders. And that's your key word, secret murders, when you're reading into the scriptures, the Book of Mormon. And so if you want to get her book and kind of do a deep dive on the secret combinations and the Gadiantons and how there was an 84-year period once the Gadiantons showed up, that there'd be a mass destruction of the people, you want to get her book. It's on Amazon. It's called Ripened, and it's an excellent read.
You know what? It is so good. It is very well done. My husband, I gave it to a ton of my friends for Christmas. And so my husband picked it up, my copy, and started reading it. And his first comment, wow, she's brilliant. He said, this is amazing. So my husband loved the book. It is really, really good. So I would. Great advice. Thank you so much. Because plus, let's hurry and throw a shout out for the Life March.
March for Life.
The March for Life, Saturday the 20th. That's in Salt Lake, but there's one in most states across the country. So Saturday the 20th, 11 a.m. at the Utah State Capitol. It's always so much fun. It's so positive. You know what I love? The March for Life are so positive and uplifting. They're not like they're not anti-abortion. They're pro-life, pro the mother, pro the baby. It's all very positive. It's loving each other, welcoming each other. It's very positive. So it's some great energy. So you're all welcome and invited to come and attend. It'll be a really great time. So that's Saturday the 20th, 11 a.m. at the Utah State Capitol. I want to hurry and give a great shout for our sponsor, Main Street Media Utah. So I invite you to go to mainstreetmediautah.us, KMMU. We're very excited to be on their platform and really grateful for this opportunity to educate people and get the word out. Okay, there's some other bills that I would like to also talk about and cover really quickly. Let's see, I think I made a list, but you know what? Unfortunately, I ran out of time and didn't get it printed. But we are going to talk about some really important, there are so many important bills up. People often talk about we need to not have so many bills because we do have over 1,000 bills presented, at least created each year. We have the shortest legislative session of any other state in the nation, 45 days, starting the 16th of January, ending on March 1st. So 6-7 weeks. But there's a lot of really important topics that we really, really need to be on top of. And, to me, one of the most important topics is public-private partnerships. So you could easily ask, what is wrong with a public-private partnership? Because we've been talking about this at least for 15 years, talking about the problem with them. And so many people and legislators it's so awesome. It's wonderful to have a private business connect with the public and the government and to mesh together and to have some synergy and work together, and it's going to save us tax dollars. It's going to save us money. It's going to be really awesome. But I want you to think about, here is the problem. When you have the government, which should be run by accountable elected people that we elect and that we can hold accountable, and the government has a role. And what is the role of the government? It is to protect the individual rights of the people. To protect our individual rights. And that is even against the government itself, against anybody, other citizens or other businesses. Then you have a business who is maybe funding the government, but then also making money off of the government. So you have to pick winners and losers to have public-private partnerships. You're picking, certain companies get to be funded by the government proceeds. That's your tax dollars. And then when the end of the day comes, do the profits, do they go back to the citizens who are paying the infrastructure or paying for this? No, the profits go to the private business. Now, I'm a business owner. I'm not against business. I'm way pro-business, but I'm against public-private partnerships and meshing the business with the government, because there is a word for that, and it is fascism. And that is not a republic. And we are required by our Constitution, the only place in our federal Constitution that requires the states to do anything. The entire Constitution tells the federal government what they have a role to do, what they have power to do, and what they do not have power to do, what they're forbidden to do. Anything outside of those powers that are specifically listed, they do not have power over them. But it does in Article 4, Section 4, require every state in the nation to provide a republic form of government. And so when you have a public-private partnership, you're violating that. You are no longer acting as a republic. Now what you have is unelected, unaccountable businesses that have power over your daily life. They have control and power. And so that is really an important distinction and a huge loss of our freedom and liberty. And that has been coming overwhelmingly in many, many of our bills, as we have discussed. Corporate personhood has become really big. And again, like I say, it's been interesting. I have not been able to verify this, but Lehi, one of the cities, like Lehi is this lovely little small community that just like blew up with Utah's Silicon Valley becoming the tech center of Utah and of the West. And they, like, let's say it has been proposed that they sell their private streets the streets in the city of Lehi, sell those streets and their public parks, sell them to a private entity. Now, the advantage to that's really awesome, because now you have a private entity that's going to do snow removal, that's going to resurface it, that's going to maintain it. It's going to take all of that. They're going to take care of the parks. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Now the citizens don't have to do that. The government is going to pay just sell that off to a private business. So now the city does not have to pay those expenses anymore. That sounds really awesome, don't you think? So like, oh, now the city doesn't have to pay for all that. Now a public business is going to snowplow the roads. The public business is going to maintain the park. Here's the problem. A public business does not have to protect your individual rights the way the government does. What if you want to have a farmer's market? You have to get permission from a private business. What if you want to have a rally or a protest? You would have to get permission. Your rights are not protected by this business. What if they said, you know what? You're not driving a electric vehicle on the road where it's close to you. This road is only open to electric cars. Or, I mean, you guys have great imaginations, better than mine. I'm just thinking of things that come off the top of my head. Is that where we want to live? Is that the kind of community we want to create and live under? We do not. Our government has a role, and we want our government to fulfill that role and to protect our rights. And we want the government to own our streets and to own our parks. That is the role, and that is what we want. But we want the businesses to do what businesses are great at, owning and producing businesses and providing jobs and providing opportunities for people to buy and sell and the marketplace. We don't want businesses taking over our government.
I would love to know what kind of pushback Lehigh City had with that, because I would be going, this is your function.
This is your function.
This is what you are supposed to be doing at this level of government. Okay. And you're shirking it off and giving it to somebody else. Okay. I mean, I'm just curious. It would be interesting to know if there was a lot of pushback on this or not, or if the citizens were aware of it, and again, it's hard because if you're not attending all the meetings and paying attention, which it's hard when you have to pay attention at every stinking level of office in the state, because, we have this assumption that because we're this red state, but we're really a fake red state, but it's tough for people to be at every meeting.
Yeah, no, it's impossible to. That's why in a republic, we elect our people from our neighborhoods and our communities to go represent us. And the problem is they're being lobbied so heavily by these interest groups, by people that represent the United Nations without their name, and by the League of Cities and Towns. Sorry, no offense, but honestly, I don't see the League of Cities and Towns being pro-freedom in any way, shape, or form. And so they've got all these lobbyists and organizations that are lobbying for what they want, not what is in the best interest of citizens. And legislators are left, you can dress up a pig and make it look in the most beautiful dress and put great lipstick on it, and it's hard to identify it as a pig. And so it's really important that we elect moral people that have a moral foundation. They also need to have they need to be very savvy. They need to have the power of discernment, and they also need to be educated and aware of what is coming down. They need to know about these pressures and these ideas that are going to sound really lovely. So I wasn't there. I don't know either. But like I say, it doesn't really matter about the city of Lehigh. That's irrelevant. What matters is these ideas that will sound really good on the surface level, that if you think about what are the intended consequences, they're not so great. Okay. We also have a lot of public-private partnership bills that are coming through. So we've got to be very, very aware of those bills. And Chris, we're getting a lot of feedback. I don't know that it's from yours, but I don't know if you can see if there's any background noise going on.
Totally quiet in my room.
Okay, just checking. I don't know what is causing it, but we just have to we're tough. We're not wusses. We're tough. We can deal with it. There are a lot of really good bills that are coming up. One of them is Representative Kara Brooklyn is sponsoring a bill to get us out of Title IX. And I love that. That's going to be a great bill. I'm really excited about that. That'll be really important. And there's bills that one of the other big problems that we have is Envision Utah. Envision Utah is really pushing the global agenda and pushing the green agenda, the global warming agenda. Who cares more about our clean air, our clean water, and protecting our lands than people that live in Utah? I just ask you, who is more invested? Who has a natural reason to protect those things? No one cares more about them than the people who live in Utah. But we need to have power and control, and we need to be doing that in our own way and do it on our own. We have the federal government telling us that the EPA is telling us that we have to clean up we have to go green, and we have to clean up our air and water. Now, of course we want to, and that is really important. That is important. We love breathing. I'm quite a fan of it myself, and I have yet to find someone who doesn't love breathing, and we love to breathe clean air. So we do not want to have crony businesses here, crony capitalists who don't care about creating value, that don't have a moral compass, that just want to make money at all expense. We want businesses that do care, and we want to support those businesses and bring those businesses here and support them. But if the EPA has admitted, if no one lived in the state of Utah, if there wasn't one industry or one person, one car in the entire state, and literally no people, that we still could not meet the regulations of the EPA. It is not even doable. So what is the point? Like, we need to acknowledge and be upfront that those are unrealistic. They're ridiculous. So we know the EPA is going to come on us and come down on us and restrict us and charge us. And so we need to just absolutely walk away, and we need to employ federalism and tell the EPA, thank you so much for sharing. We will do our very best in our state. Thank you for sharing. And you have no constitutional authority here, because we are a sovereign state, and we're going to actually stick with our federalism. We need to do that. And I am really excited. We have a speaker that was recently elected, Speaker Mike Schultz, and he is 100% on board with that. And also, we have got to really disavow Envision Utah, because they are like going along with that agenda that is unrealistic, it's undoable, again, we want clean water, clean air. We want to take care of our lands, but their vision is at the expense of humans. It is at our expense of having people live and people being able to drive cars and survive in our society. So those are some of the big agendas that I hope that people will really, really get aware of me. On top of, I would recommend that everybody go on to Envision Utah. Envision is ENVISION, Utah. Go on and become a member, and then you get their updates, and then you can read their agenda. I think that's the best way. It's the best way to get involved and informed is to hear what they have to say. No one is taking it out of context, not like, oh, I'm hearing those that are against Envision Utah. Hear what they have to say. Go on and listen to what their own words are. So, we should be having a representative, Ken Ivory, should be joining us momentarily to talk about, he has, as usual, quite a few really awesome bills. So we'll be talking about that. Chris, did you want to say anything about anything? Any bills that you're following or interested in?
Well, I did, talking about this public-private partnership concept, the PPP.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting when you asked James Lindsay, Dr. Lindsay, when he was here in Utah over the weekend, what he thought about private-public partnerships, and he said, oh, that's just a new name for fascism.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Exactly
when you have the government involved in business, because that is not the role of government at any level.
It is not. And it is interesting because if you said, do you want to bring fascism to Utah? People would be, oh no, absolutely not. But when you say public-private partnerships, many people in business or not in business are excited about it. It sounds good. So they renamed it so that it is palatable. And it's a very clever thing that has been happening. It's not new. Look at pro-choice. What are religious people all over? We are all about freedom, and we are about pro-choice. We want to choose to follow God. That is our choice. We're about choosing for ourselves and not about force. That is the beauty. One of the amazing beauties of living in a Christian nation. What other kind of nation would support you not being forced to adhere to their own dogma, their own faith, or their rules? Christianity is all about freedom and you choosing. Pro-choice has been hijacked into pro-death. I mean, they do a really good job selling it. It does sound really good. Like, I should have a right to my body, which I absolutely pro-choice to your body. But when you're talking about someone else's body that you have stewardship over and that you have the power to give life, to finish their life, and give them autonomy as a life, or to end their life, I can't imagine any of us would want. It breaks my heart that anyone would want to end the life of their own child. So that's just one example of where they've taken words. I think the rainbow flag is another excellent example. The word gay, happy, 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 not violating God's law. To take the rainbow, God's promise to his people, and use that as something completely in violation or in opposition is it's sad. But that's what is really good is they're really fantastic at taking words and meanings and changing the meaning of them. Like diversity. Who would be against diversity? Diversity is awesome. That is America. E pluribus. I'm saying it wrong. E unum publicorum. I can't. Sorry. But out of many is one. So that is what diversity is. Out of many people, we have all this diversity, different cultures, different histories, coming from different countries, different looks, different likes, different beliefs, and we all come together as one. And that is what America really is about. And then they've taken that, and we want to be inclusive, and then that's what we want, and then those pushing inclusion are very exclusive.
Exactly. So they've taken the idea of diversity and turned it into a weapon to divide us.
Yes.
Creates division, not so diversity has now created division.
Right.
Which is
and
what it is not to do.
And it sounds so good. Diversity sounds so great. Inclusion sounds wonderful. Don't we want to include everyone, regardless of how much we might disagree with you? We want to include you. We want to welcome you. We want to love you. And we want to, agree to disagree and respect each other. But again, it's a weapon to divide us. And equity, which sounds like a good thing, is equality, which we all agree we should be equal in standing, equal in rights, equal in protection, has turned into, equity, which is the outcome is the same, not the equal opportunity or
the opportunity. Yeah.
It's about outcomes. So, that is really what we have to be really aware of and on top of. And I do not see, I was just checking quickly to see if I got a text from Representative Ken Ivory. And I mean, Ken is a very busy legislator. He is an attorney, and he is also the president of Ivory Law Firm, and he's on the American Lands Council. He has been a really great proponent and really very instrumental in getting educated and working very hard at our mission to take the lands of Utah back. We have a really big problem in the state of Utah where over 65% of our land is being controlled. I don't want to say owned because I don't think they do own it. I don't think they can constitutionally own it, but it is being controlled by the federal government. I think Nevada is the only state with more land mass. I think it's 67%, but correct me if I'm wrong. So that's a really important issue that he is working on. And I feel like there's a lot of momentum in the state of Utah to really make that happen, because we start it and then people don't really go anywhere. They don't want to push back to the feds. But I feel like there's really a push now to do that. The other thing that Representative Ivory has been a great sponsor of was he calls it sensitive material for minors. I call it pornography in schools. So we have worked really, really hard to get the pornography that is in our schools out of our schools. And this is a really important topic for me, because we, again, as a society, as a teacher, an educator, as a mother, we have a responsibility to protect our children from being subjected to pornography anywhere, but especially in our schools. And somehow it's okay in school, but if I were to show you the same thing that is in the schools and I showed that to you elsewhere, I would be arrested. If I showed that to a child, I would be arrested, and so would you. But when it's shown to students in school, it's educational, and so we just give a blind eye to it. So that is a really important topic. And Representative Ivory does have a bill that is coming up this year that is to fix that. We've already passed a bill, but there's been some issues with it. The schools are not getting rid of this pornographic material. And we need to, as parents and as grandparents and as members of society, we absolutely need to be very aware, and we need to go into our schools. So I would recommend everyone go to a website called Rated Books, RATED books.org. Go onto that website, and Brooke Stevens and her friends have done so much work on this. They've gone into the schools across the state of Utah, and this is going to be the same in other states, the same books that are inappropriate, that are in our school libraries, and they have looked at them and documented what they say and where they say it. And you have to use, unfortunately, these words. Telling them that it's inappropriate isn't going to get them out. We have to start telling legislators and school board members, this is what it says. Is this okay with you? Are you rubber stamping this? Are you okay? So that's something that everyone has the power to do. When you have a half an hour, go on there, ratedbooks.org. Look at those books, go into the schools, find the books that are there, find out what books are in those schools, and then talk to your principals and librarians and parents, get them aware, and just, respectfully, ever so respectfully ask them to remove these books from the libraries. I do want to invite everyone tonight in the Utah State Capitol. We are doing a training for people that want to get involved and be aware of what's going on and get involved in our legislative session. It is going to be 6:30 p.m. at the Utah State Capitol. It is in room 210, which is the Senate building. The very first building with the big parking lot is just east of that building. You go upstairs. You do have to enter it. You have to go around the building. You have to enter the building from the west doors, and then you go upstairs to level 210, or to the second level, to room 210. And that is where we'll do this training. And I think I feel very confident you will find it well worth your time, because we're going to teach you how to be involved. And even if it's just 5 minutes a day, how to get on the website, how to actually get on the website and use it. We have a great website in the state of Utah. It's very user-friendly. How to attend a committee meeting, where they are, how to go attend a committee meeting and testify, and also how to attend a committee meeting from your home. You can go on Zoom and attend, so you don't even have to leave your house if you don't want to, or your work. If you're working, you can attend. So we will tell you all that. We will also, really help you understand how to read a bill, how to understand and read a bill. That's a really big problem, because you can read a bill and think it does completely different than what it does. So we will teach you how to read a bill. Then we will also we have numerous senators and representatives that will be in attendance, and they will speak briefly about their bills, and you can learn about some of the bills they're sponsoring. And then we will divide in groups, and we will be able to go on a tour at the Capitol. And, it is fun to go on a tour with a senator or representative. They have great stories, and they can also kind of get you behind the scenes where you don't get to go otherwise. So that's a really nice opportunity to get to go behind the scenes and get to go on the floor of the Senate and the House and get to enter. And like I say, they have great stories, and it's really nice to actually put a face with these people and get to meet our awesome legislators. You get to know who are the really freedom-loving legislators, senators, and House members. And I just want to give a shout out to Senator Ron Winterton. Today, he and his wife, Lori, it is their anniversary. I don't know how many years, but it's been a while. And I am really happy for them. And they're celebrating their anniversary tonight. And so Senator Winterton will not be there. But we do have many great senators and legislators that will be there. And we invite all of you to come. It is free, open to the public. Again, you just go to the parking lot up to the Capitol, go at the parking lot on the east side or the street parking, and go in that first building right there. It's the Senate building. Go up. You have to enter from the west side, go upstairs to room 210. We'll be watching for you, and we would love to have you join us, and it's free. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I would love to have all of you come, get engaged, share your opinion, get educated on the Constitution. One of the most important principles of the Constitution is federalism, because we do need to, as a state, use the tools that we have. We have the tool of saying, thank you, feds, for sharing, but it's not one of the powers that are listed, the 20 powers listed in Article 1, Section 8. There are 20 powers there that the Congress has power to do. Article 2 tells what the executive branch has the power to do. And frankly, the judicial branch doesn't really have much power in the state of Utah. It's not one of those issues, one of those 20 powers. So we need to take our state back and employ our federalism that is in our Constitution and in Article 1, Section 8, and also in Amendment 10, also reiterates federalism. If it's not one of those powers, and it's not specifically given to the federal governments, it is the state and power of the government, of the state and the people. So remember that you are the guardians of your liberty. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us.